We are in Yaakov and the Gemara Shabbat. Please subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. Thank you. Okay. I should forget what to say already. Okay, so it says we're talking about hydrogen, which they translate as dropsy in your books. Otherwise, in the article they just do as hydrogen. They just give it a transliteration. Anyway, we're talking about various Amoraim who contracted the disease. There's Shmuel HaKatan Chashba Ebe. Shmuel HaKatan was once afflicted with it. So Amar Ribbon Shalom, when this occurred, he said, Master of the universe, me, Mephis, who will cast lots to determine the reason I contracted this affliction? People will presume that I am guilty of immorality, which is what we originally said, that was the purpose of hydrogen, right? That is coming from someone who deliberately commits transgressions and so on and so forth. So he said, who will cast lots to determine the reason I contracted this? Itase, after he proclaimed this, prayer became cured. Okay, so he says, so they explain, since one type of hydrogen came as a punishment for sexual transgression, Shmuel HaKatan feared that people would misread his symptoms and presume that he had indeed contracted the hydrogen for this reason. Indeed, not everyone is aware of the different symptoms of hydrogen and their various causes, nor are the differences between these symptoms easy to distinguish. So here Shmuel HaKatan, one of the rabbis, he develops this hydrogen, this disease. So he says, so interesting approach to do is to go to God and say, Rebbeinu Shalom, you gave me this disease. Clearly you gave this disease for whatever transgression I have. Tremendous, okay? The problem is that people are going to see me will have this, and they're going to make an assumption that I'm guilty of sexual immorality. So it's going to become a chilul Hashem, a profanation of God's name. Really, that's his argument.
Did that curse happen in odd numbers or just even numbers? Because it ought to affect both people. Indiscretion. You don't indiscretion alone.
Well, he didn't do it. Point is, he didn't do it. So even if both of them would be afflicted, so what? I'm not sure. Only one is. If they're both afflicted, they're both afflicted. But he's saying I didn't do anything. But people are going to assume I did, because we say that again. That's the point. We say that it's because of sins. So if I have this. Where does it say it straight out? He said right here. Oh, it's in Brachot. Okay, fine. No 45. So, right. Yeah, he's saying that, the Maharsha is saying that whenever you see a sin, he says the term avera, when undefined, is always used by the Gemara to refer to sexual immorality. So since it was an avera, since it's always referring to that, so now Shmuel HaKatan, like I said, he has a problem. He's one of the big guys. He made the book, so he's one of the big guys. And if he develops that, so they're going to say, so the onlooker may say that, this is how the rabbis act. Okay, so they get involved in sexual immorality, and they're really not good role models, so now you're making a chilul Hashem, you're making a profanation of God's name. And as a result of that, so that's his prayer. He is, like I said, it's an interesting prayer, an interesting approach to get rid of disease. Because you're saying, people make the assumption I've done this, so what happens? God cures him. He doesn't want that. Since it wasn't for that reason, apparently, he was not involved in sexual immorality. So Hashem cured him. Very nice. Okay, good enough. By the way, that's what you should be doing when you have a malady. You could run to the doctor, and the doctor could give you their analysis of what your problem is. But bottom line is, according to Jewish philosophy, your ailments are, as I said many times, are your spiritual maladies are present in a physical malady. So now all I have to do is figure out why you're having, what your physical malady is. I always like to pick on the sore throat, because when you have a sore throat, so what's the easiest thing you can say you're doing wrong? Right, Moshe Shemra, or you're speaking Lashon Hara, you're doing something like that, you're speaking slander, so Hashem is saying, I'm going to show you you're doing slander because your throat hurts. By the way, if your foot hurts, it doesn't mean you spoke Lashon Hara, that you can't jump to something like that. It has to be what we call Mida connected Mida, measure for measure. So if your foot hurts, potentially it could mean that you didn't use your feet properly. In other words, you didn't go to a mitzvah when you had the opportunity. You didn't walk to the mitzvah when you had the opportunity, or something like that. Or you ran to do an avera. You ran to do a sin. So Hashem is saying, you used your feet inappropriately, so I'm going to give you a pain in the foot. Okay?
Sorry, if I have an earache, did I say something bad or did I hear something bad?
You heard something bad. You allowed yourself to hear something bad without closing
my ears first.
More than that, without
paying attention,
objecting. That's the word I was looking for.
We
Without
just talked
objecting.
about that
Right,
earlier.
right. In other words, I could either walk away, that's certainly a methodology, or you can go la 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 la, which is obnoxious.
I do that when the news comes on.
Okay, yeah, okay, there you go.
I can run to shut it off.
There you go. Good. Fine. Okay. Right. There you go. Okay. But yeah, when we allow wrong things to enter our ears, Hashem could be giving us a little signal via a little earache to do that. Now, again, anybody listening to this is going to say, it's 2018. He's insane. Okay, fine. Say I'm insane all you want. But it's, I really don't care. But that is the philosophy, that if I do something wrong, God doesn't give me pain unless I've done something wrong. Pain in the neck, I've looked at the wrong things. Either that or I just have a pain in the neck. I mean, nothing just happens, that's the point. And you could say I slept wrong, but it doesn't really make you're not going to do teshuva based upon that. So every chance that we get to do teshuva, we use the indicators that we have. By the way, that teshuva also works in real life too. Your foot hurts, right? So let's say your legs hurt, right? So it could tell you, let's say you're into exercise, it could tell you that you're doing the wrong type of work on your legs, right? And that's when their knees hurt, whatever's going to hurt. So it could be that they're pushing too much, and the body's telling them, hey, guy, wake up. You're hurting me. You can't do it. You have to go slow. So if you slow it down, your leg stops bothering you, now you can build up again, right? That's in the physical world. So now imagine if you just use that logic and say, okay, not only may I be pushing myself, but if I didn't do anything, suddenly I have a pain. Well, it must be that Hashem is trying to give me a signal. So now what signal is Hashem trying to give me? Okay?
So, regarding this whole thing about connection of affliction and averot, what about the idea of like a tikkun? That, once upon a time you had something that you had to atone for, or past tense, or previous gulim, or something like that. How's that fit in?
How's that fit in? Because let's say that you, for the audience out there, okay, the thousands, the millions of people listen to me, the question was that how do you deal with Gilgulim, with reincarnation, where we have to make our neshama has to be fixed, as it were. So what do you do with that? Okay, so the Gemara in Brachot, it says that if I am afflicted and I've done my investigation, I can find no reason for the affliction, I am a tzaddik. So then you can assume that is either a test of something else for you, and you're going to get from that. So that could also feed into that could be the tikkun if you're for anything you're doing. So it would, in other words, Mida Keneged Mida works if I've done something wrong. But if I've done nothing wrong, so then I have to assume that is either extra reward, Hashem loves me, could be tikkun, it could be anything like that. But normally tikkun is constant, so that's something else you have to think about. Tikkun doesn't, the tikkun that we're going to do, the fixing up for a Gilgal, which I'm not so sure I'm buying into personally, but it's I'll go with it for a second. It would be a continual tikkun. So let's say the person was a rich person in his previous life, and he didn't give the proper tzedakah. People came, or people came to him, and he would give tzedakah the right amount, but he would do it with a scowl on his face or belittle the person. And I'm always making it a he because I'm just a prejudiced guy, but it's really should be he or she. Okay, and so now what happens is that person dies, and Hashem said, "I gave that money wasn't yours. The money was mine. I gave to you, and you should have given it as I give it, with kindness. You should have been happy to have to give that. You should have been, but you didn't. You were bitter. So now you have to know what that feels like. You have to know the other side. So your life is spent begging money from people and seeing the disgust that they have for you, and now you're feeling it. And each time you go through that, that could be another tikkun. Okay, or the other way. It can be the guy who's poor and cursing this rich guy. He could have given me more. Oh, so now you'll come back as rich, and you'll have the same Yetzer Hara. Or, by the way, I'm going to defend the rich people for 1 second. I know it's not normally done to defend the rich, but the rich guy who, we have a lottery right now for $1.6 billion. I think that's what it's presently rated at, 1.6. There's going to be one poor schlepper who's going to win. One poor schlepper is going to win. I don't think it's going to be an office pool this time. I think it's going to be one poor schlepper. And I'm going to guess that poor schlepper is really a poor schlepper. Okay, who thinks if I would have had money, I would do bum, 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 bum. Okay, fine. Hashem may very well reward that person. And then now what happens? That person who thinks that they can go out buy a car and this and that. I mean, in our lifetime, we don't think we could spend $1.6 billion. By the way, if I take a cut, I give the government half that and so on and so forth. Who cares? $500 million. Okay. I personally don't think that living the way I live right now, I could spend that money. As a matter of fact, I know I couldn't. But we all know we're not going to live like that. We're going to quit our job. We're going to go on world trips. We're going to buy 5 houses and
Buy yourself an island.
I say, yeah?
Buy yourself an island.
An island.
Yeah.
Do what you're going, and you're going to. It's just ridiculous what we'll do. Now what happens is, but the rich person who has understanding of what the money is, and it's not his, and he has to give it away. So then, he has to do proper things with it. That person has a heck of a headache, because now I have to deal with people who are going to come to me, and they're going to give me the sob story, and I have to make decisions. Is this a good sob story? Is it not? Is it true? Is it not? This is God's money. Do I have a right to just throw it away? I'm God's banker. I have fiduciary responsibility here. I have to make sure that people are working. So I have to invest it in businesses. I have to make sure. There's a lot of. By the way, let's face it. There's a lot of ways to give tzedakah. The best way to give tzedakah is to give you a job, so you become self-supporting. Okay, and so you can give tzedakah. The best thing is not to just give tzedakah to the poor guy who's holding a sign up. I want beer. It's not. So it's nice to give him money, and he's honest about it, Baruch Hashem. But or the one who says, I'm trying to feed my family. Again, it's nice to give money, but really the best thing would be to give them a job. So now the rich guy has to figure out some way that they can give this person a job so that person can now become a productive person in society who can then give money to other people. So it's not so simple. And then you have to, and then of course you have to, the person at the same time has to think, this is not my money, this is not my money, this is not my money, this is not my money.
He becomes a steward for other people.
Right, but he has to always remember, it's not my money. God gave me this money. Every single dollar that rich person has, the $1 billion, Warren Buffett, if he's listening to me, okay? MT, write the check out to Midwest Tourist Center, okay? If you're listening, okay? Sounds okay, right. You call it Rabbi Neville. Call me, okay? We'll talk. We'll have a coffee. Okay. Warren Buffett has a tremendous responsibility for society in general, but also he has to recognize it's all from God. And again, that is something, that is a Yetzer Hara that I don't know if we can overcome. We always think we did it. We'll give God credit. Okay, but I still did it. No, you didn't do anything. You made a good investment. You did something right. You think, but God told you what to do. And you listened. He gave you the intelligence to do what you're doing. And you listened. But it doesn't mean you're a genius. God gave it to you. And that's what we're saying. So when you look at Gilgulim, you have to say, okay, what's the test that I keep coming into? You know what? I'll tell you. Something that in my entire rabbinical career, as much for growing up, there's one thing I've always had to deal with, making a minyan. So I assume that in my previous life, assume there was a life there, that I was the guy who said, call me if I'm number 10. I'm guessing. Because it's something like, it's just like, it never ends. In my entire career, I've been making minyanim. Okay? And that's something that constantly comes back to haunt me. In this city, we had a minyan before I walked in. And you would have thought I'm free. No. I find myself back in the saddle again.
Once at Sinai, I was the last one to get there.
Yeah.
Somebody told me afterwards that I was the 10th. I said, no, we're all the 10th. I just showed up last.
There you go. There you
We're all
go.
the 10th.
Yeah.
I say I'm the first, actually.
All right.
I hold I'm the first.
Then we're all the first.
Right.
We're all first
Right.
among equals.
No, but it's just interesting that when you see yourself constantly doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you would think you wouldn't have to. Well, it could be that I'm a tikkun for something I've done in the previous lives, whatever, or it's just a test that Hashem wants to give me and say, okay, this is your job, do it. I gave you the kochot, I gave you the powers, do it. And don't sit in the sidelines and say somebody else will do it. So again, if you're going for Gilgulim, that would be my answer to that. Okay. So Abaye Chazbei. So once happened, Abaye was afflicted with it. So he also gets hydrogen. Amarava. So Rava said, Yadana benachmani demachapin nafshe. I know concerning Nachman that he deprives himself of food. Thus, let no one presume he's afflicted with hydrogen because of transgression. So here we go. We have a person who is defending the other. Abaye and Rava were, of course, friends, but they argued vehemently in the Gemara. But here Rava is defending Abaye. So another name. So he explains that because he calls him Nachmani. Why does he call him Nachmani? So he says a young orphan Abaye was raised and educated by Rabba Bar Nachmani, Rabba the son of Nachmani, who dubbed him with his father's name Nachmani. And that's why Rava would call Abaye Nachmani, because of what Rabba called this boy, his orphan. Okay. I'll explain that Abaye was Rabba's nephew and he was given his name, and his given name was in fact Nachmani, after paternal grandfather, but as Rabba out of filial respect did not wish to call out his father's name, even to address someone else, he called the young Nachmani Abaye, which is Aramaic for my father. And this became the name by which Abaye was popularly known. Okay, so was his name Nachmani? Was his name Abaye? What was his name? It's an argument. Okay. So then what Rava says is this hydrogen, he starves himself. As mentioned above, hunger is one of the causes of hydrogen. So he's telling him the world, he wasn't involved in sexual immorality, rather it's because the poor guy doesn't eat. He must have been very skinny.
In my book here, it says something about starvation or the pot. By the pot.
Oh, the what?
The pot. Overeating. Here, look. More numerous than those killed by the pot than this. Well, and he uses it twice upstairs on the next column.
Oh, we didn't get there yet.
Well, we're about to.
We're about to get there. So, right.
All right, well,
So let me just get there, and then we'll I see it. So Rava Chashbei, so Rava too was once afflicted by it. So the Gemara now says, how this could be. He said, "Hi Rabba, duhu da'ama nefisha ketile kedar neficha kappa more numerous of those who die by the pots than those whose stomachs are swelled through hunger." So he explains this to mean the pots refer to the excretory system, the internal intestinal tract, the rectum, so named because it spills out waste as a pot spills out fluid. The Gemara elsewhere states that the hydrogen can be caused by repeatedly resisting the urge to defecate. Rabbi's aphorism emphasizes the danger inherent in this practice. He cautions that abuse of the excretory system is a widespread cause of hydrogen, so much so that many people are killed by hydrogen contracted in this way, more than are killed by hydrogen contracted through hunger. So he's saying that that's what he's saying. That's what the pot means. He's saying that people hold it in, and that's no good, and people will die from that more than if their stomachs are filled through hunger, swelled through hunger. Okay, thus Rava was clearly aware of the practices that bring about hydrogen, and he certainly would have guarded himself from doing these things. So Rava was obviously aware that hunger brings about hydrogen. He himself blamed Abaya's contraction of the illness on this factor, and he was also aware that failure to relieve himself when needed carries a similar risk. Thus, what could Rava have done to contract the illness? That's what they said. Okay, so that's the build up to the story. We're going to pick on Rava for 1 second. Okay, he knew that starvation was good. He knew it was no good. He knew that holding yourself in wasn't good. He also knew that sexual immorality brings hydrogen. But so we know that he didn't do one of the two. How about the third? So Shani Rava, it says Rava was different. The Ansi le Rabbanan bidane Baal Korche, for his obligations toward the rabbinical students who studied from him, at times kept him from, against his will, from relieving himself regularly. So he knew what caused it. But the problem was people like to ask the rabbi questions. So he said it would have been degrading for Rava to depart in the middle of his lectures to relieve himself. In general, the halacha regards it as impermissible to repeatedly delay relieving oneself. And so for a discussion of how, then they ask how he could do it, so fine, they don't answer that question here. But this becomes a problem when the best way is, well, the halacha says the best way is to regulate your body. We can train our bodies to defecate and to urinate at certain times. Okay. Now, there are times that the body does not respond like that. For instance, if it's sick. But in general, we go to the bathroom at a certain time, pretty much by clockwork, and so on and so forth. So how do you do that, by the way? By keeping yourself hydrated. As long as you hydrate yourself, you're very hydrated. So then now the body gets used to, after going to sleep, let's say, when you wake up in the morning, generally people will defecate in the morning, certainly urinate, and they'll get through with it. Then you generally don't have to go the rest of the day, right? Generally, nothing is set in stone. But if you train yourself to do that, that's one thing. There's a Gemara in Brachot again that says, though, that the guy's face was red when he would come to the show. Why? Because he would stop at every privy to go to the bathroom. So they said, he's very healthy because of that. Okay. But so, again, everybody's body works different. But here, what happens is when you sometimes have to go to the bathroom, suddenly somebody's talking to you. You don't want to interrupt the conversation. You figure it'll be a quick conversation. So you don't say anything. Nonetheless, you held off your defecation, and that can make you sick. So it really would be better to say, "Excuse me, everybody. I'll be right back. Don't leave your chairs." And that's it. I remember one of my Rebbeim, actually in the middle of class, he never got up, he never did anything. He used to sit in this chair and give the class from the chair. In the middle of the sentence, suddenly he gets up and leaves. And we're like, did we say something to insult him? We didn't know what happened. So one of the guys said, in a joking manner, he said, even Pharaoh had to go to the bathroom once a day. We said, okay, fine. But that's that's what he could have been worried about. So that's why Rav was different. He knew what he shouldn't do, and yet when he didn't want to interrupt the conversation because he didn't want to show lack of respect for the questioner, so he would sometimes hold up, and that's what got him hadrikin. Okay. So Tana Rabbana, rabbis learned the bride to Arabah Simanim Hain. There are 4 indicators of misconduct. Siman Levera Hadrokin, and indicators of sexual transgression is Hadrokin. Siman Sinat, which we discussed before. Sinat, Siman Sinachinam. Let's say an indicator of free hatred, gratuitous hatred, is Yerakon jaundice. There you go. Siman Legasad Ruach, the sign for arrogance, is Aniot, paucity of being poor. He says paucity. He says paucity in Torah knowledge. Rashi explains the connection between arrogance and paucity in Torah knowledge. Firstly, an arrogant person lacks the humility necessary to listen carefully to Torah scholars and assimilate the wisdom they teach. Secondly, one who is arrogant tends to place exaggerated confidence in his mental prowess. Hence, he is not likely to review his studies often enough to remember them. That's, by the way, this is, I'm not sure if it's so much arrogance as is laziness. But it's, people have a big problem reviewing.
What? Their own behavior?
No, reviewing what they learned. People have a problem reviewing what they learned. They don't like to review. People like to go on. Reviewing is seen as a waste of time. And it's something that we constantly are pushing. You have to review. And it's certainly in the Torah world. But without that said and done, we also love Daf Yomi. So you learn a page of Gemara a day, never to see it again for another 7 years, 7.5. And so there's stories that every time we finish the Gemara, the entire all 63 tractates, but it's not really 63. We have 20 volumes up there. Fine. So every 7.5 years, you hear stories of people who, when they were going to work, they would, before going to work, they would go to a class, which they would record. Today it would be an MP3. Okay, in those days it was recording. But how they record the classes these days. So then they would do that. And then they get on the subway, and they're going to work from the subway to their place. It's normally an hour subway ride anyway, at least. So they would be listening to the tape, reviewing their very same page. On the way back, they'd have another hour. Okay, let's review it again. And then this guy wanted to get so much, he went to the class at night. So he would learn it 4 times.
Wow.
Every page he'd be learning 4 times. So really, he saw it though he finished Shas 4 times in 7 years, 7.5 years. Okay, that was the point of that story. But the real point of the story is he wanted to get it. So he reviewed it. He didn't say, okay, let me go on and on and on and on and on. Like I would be reading a Harry Potter book. You don't do that. So, although I know that people like to, what the crazy thing is, some people like to do is movies.
Yeah.
They said that when Titanic came out.
Which one?
Titanic.
Oh.
Some people did Chazara on Titanic. They went going and going and going and going. Some people saw Titanic 20 times. I was thinking, you're insane.
Other movies people have done.
Yeah, why would you do that?
Why?
They liked it. Yeah. Why am I think they're insane? It's a lot of money.
What was the Hebrew word you used?
Titanic, I said. Shas.
I don't know, the repetition of it.
Chazara.
Yeah.
Chazara is to review. They have to do Chazara. They have to review. So that's the biggest thing. You have to always review what you've learned. Then it becomes part of you. It says that the person who learns the daf, the page, 100 times versus the person who learns it 101 times. 101 times is much better. He'll know so much more than the guy who learned it only 100 times. Okay, it's only one more time more. No, but you get more. You see more and more and more and more and more. So that's what you're supposed to do. You're never supposed to just do it once and then go on and again 7 years later or whatever it's going to be.
You said it again now, just now. You were you'll see the same lesson every 7 years. The truth is, to those who review, they'll see the same lesson page after page because the next one is built on the last one.
Well, yeah.
You shouldn't go ahead
Correct.
unless you know where you are.
Correct.
Or you are nowhere.
Correct. But again, people don't like to do that. So the Gemara is referring to that as arrogance. I'm saying, I'm not sure if it's arrogance as much as laziness. I'm not sure. It could be arrogance too, but I'll take their word for it. But I think it's
arrogance. Is I read it one time. That's enough.
right. It could be. It could be that's what they're talking about. I know it. I know it. Just leave me alone. But and by the way, you see this also in college. You see it in high school all the way through. Actually, you see it all the way through school. I used to tell. I was teaching when I was teaching 6th grade. So I would tell the kids, okay, I want you to go home and I want to review it 10 minutes every night. Just go through the verses every night. Just go through it. It takes you 10 minutes. As a matter of fact, I said it here too. I said it every time. Take 10 minutes. Just review it. And what happens, they would come the next day. Did you do your homework? Yeah, of course, Rabbi. We did it. Okay, read. They couldn't read. I knew they didn't do their homework. It was a double pocket already. Leave me alone. So I said, you guys don't get it. I'm not doing it for me. I know the verses. You need to know it. So you know it. So when it comes to the test, you don't have to kill yourself. It's just a simple looking it over one more time. You know it. It's done. And they never got it because it was, to me, again, I think it's Yetzirah, the evil inclination works very much against us and trusts us. We don't need it. We don't need it. You know it. You know it. You know it. So they'll read it once and they'll think, I know it. They don't know it. And then they'll go on. Or they won't. They'll go play baseball, whatever they're going to do. Or play the video games. But it's really, maybe that's what the arrogance they're talking about. I'm not sure. But like I said, maybe arrogance is coupled with laziness. I'm not sure. But Sivan Lashon Hara. And finally, when it comes to Lashon Hara, speaking Lashon Hara, the disease is Askara. Now, what's Askara? He identifies it with diphtheria, a disease that primarily infects the throat. In the days of the Talmud, it was feared as one of the most horrible of maladies, a disease that often leads to a ghastly death. According to Rashi, the disease attacks the intestinal tract in its early stages. As it progresses, the throat becomes constricted and the patient can slowly strangle to death. The Gemara explains why it's associated with slanderous speech. When we speak, before we go into even the Gemara, I think it's pretty clear. Why is slander so bad? What?
It's somewhere in my head. I don't know.
What do you think? Why do you think it's bad to speak badly about somebody else?
Because it ruins your reputation, thereby ruining your reputation.
It ruins your reputation. What does it do? Now, forget yours for a second.
Okay.
Let's stick with the person you spoke Lashon Hara about. It ruins reputation, then what? Come on, work it out. It's a logical question. How you can join in?
No, that's pretty much it. It ruins reputation.
No, so what else?
You can't get it back.
Can't get it back, and what else? So what does that do?
Well, if they go the way you went, they won't try to get it back.
Say again?
If they go the way you went, they won't try to get it back, and they'll just do what you did.
Okay, so you're going to go further, or what else?
Destroys two people.
Destroys, well, it destroys. How does it destroy them?
Destroy a person's reputation, destroy their place in the community, destroy their livelihood.
Oh, good. Finally. We're getting down to the money. Okay, destroy the livelihood, and ultimately you're going to kill them, right? So, through that, you're the cause of their death. Okay, so what is Hashem doing to you? He's showing you little by little. Nothing happens like this. It's always a slow, debilitating death. When I ruin your reputation, you have to start going and looking for something else, and you lose your family. It's a slow, very slow type of thing. So that's why he's giving them this askara. It's not fast. It gives you time to think about it. It gives you time to do tshuva. Try to rebuild your bridges. Okay? That's what you have to think about. Okay, next. Alamashe, for the infraction of Ma'aser laws, what is this? This is when, again, I don't give the proper tithing. So Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Yossi Omer, he says that it comes. Where's that?
Punishment for slander.
No, this. Oh, I missed a line. I'm sorry. And that's what happened. I knew it didn't make any sense. Tana Rabbanan. Sometimes when it doesn't make sense, you have to go back and see what you missed. Tana Rabbanan says in the Braita, Askara Ba'al Olam Alamasa. The reason that Askara, the reason this disease comes to this diphtheria comes to the world is because of not keeping Meiser. And he says it is a heavenly. So it's a disagreement. One says because of Lashon Hara. One says because of not keeping Meiser, again giving the 10th. So he says a heavenly punishment meted out to those who eat tevel, which is produce from Israel, from which the necessary taxes, truma and tithes, will not separate. Truma would go to the Kohen, tithes to the Levi. According to the Torah, the punishment for eating tevel, this untithed wheat or grain, is death at the hands of heaven. This Tana concludes that Askara is the means through which his death is brought about. In effect, Askara, which causes death through suffocation, is a measure for mida punishment. Since the tevel was eaten with the mouth and the throat, it's these parts of the body that are afflicted. Okay, so therefore, that's why you're getting Meiser, and that's why you're getting Askara. Rav Elazar, but Rav Yossi Omer, no, he says the reason you get Askara is again al lashon hara. It's because of slanderous speech. And he says scriptural sources indicate the slander too can be a sin that warrants death. In Psalms it states, he who slanders his neighbor in secret, him I will cut down. As the Gemara shows later, Askara is a fitting punishment for slander since the illness affects the speech producing organs. Okay, good. All good things we shouldn't be doing. You should be giving your meiser. You should be going to the bathroom on time. All these things, okay? You should be eating properly, and you should not speak lashon hara. So far, just stay on the state. Do what you should do, and you won't have to worry about these things. So now, Amar Rava said, V'yitem Rav Yeshua ben Levi, and some say no, it wasn't Rava, rather it was Yeshua ben Levi. One said there's my kara'am. What is the verse that teaches this, namely about this Askara? It is Hamelech Yismach Be'elokim, but the king shall rejoice in Hashem, Yithalel, Kol Nishba Bo. Glorified will be everyone who swears truthfully by him, Ki Yisachir Pidovri Shaker. But when the mouths of liars will be stopped. The implication is that the slanderous mouth shall be afflicted with Askara. So he explains that the idea of the verse is that King David and all others who love truth will rejoice in Hashem and be glorified when the mouth of the liars who slander David and incite King Shaul, against him will be stopped. The term used to characterize the fate of the slanderous mouth is Yisacher, which literally means will choke or will be constricted. The word is also the word. This word is also the root of the term Askara, the disease that chokes. So thus you see that David HaMelech was saying, for those who spoke slander against me, inciting Shaul to hate me and to want to kill me, they should suffer. They should be shut up. In other words, they should be suffocated. So he didn't appreciate the people. And by the way, think about what happened. Poor David HaMelech had to be constantly on the run while Shaul was alive. He wasn't, couldn't stay in one place too long. Yes.
So I just thought of something. One of the court punishments is constriction, right?
Strangulation. Yeah.
So for when David became king, and people were still anybody who had been after him, he didn't forgive them when he became king. He hunted them down, right? All the people anyone who remained, who were inciters of Shaul, and all the people who were trying to still keep their power.
As a matter of fact, no, he didn't. As a matter of fact, David knew, when we get there, you'll see it, but he knew that the kingdom was shaky.
Right.
So to start trying to get revenge on his enemies would not have united the kingdom.
Right.
So he didn't do that. what would happen later is he would tell his son, Shlomo, okay, Shlomo, you have to understand, we have some enemies in the kingdom. So use your wiles to make sure that they get taken care of.
Right. So.
But so as a result, there's only 3 people, by the way. That
Right.
does that too.
So
It's not a whole.
eventually, a lifetime. All the old people die out.
Yeah. I mean, he was also angry when I forget the names. Avner versus. There were 2 generals. I can't think of the other one's name, but one was with the Shaul's main guy, who would ultimately come to David.
Cousin.
What?
Charles' uncle or cousin, or however that one.
I forget how Yoav and Avner. So I forget who was who, but I think it was Avner was with Shaul. I'm pretty sure Avner was Shaul and Yoav. Okay, so then Yoav would ultimately kill Avner, not because of his friendship with or his alliance with Shaul, but rather because Avner killed Yoav's brother. In that story, he kills his brother because Yoav's brother was trying to kill Avner. So self-defense. But still, he shouldn't have done it. He could have wounded him, and he could have let him go. So Yoav ultimately will get revenge. David will then say, that was wrong. I'm trying to unite the kingdom. You shouldn't have done that. And so he keeps Yoav at a distance, and ultimately will tell Shlomo, this is what your enemy is. So, and Yoav and Shlomo again will use his God-given brains to how to deal with him and Shimi ben Gera.
Right, but
Yeah.
Since strangulation is a court thing, and you're the king, and you have enemies, you can just say, as an enemy of the state, strangulation.
Yeah, okay, but they didn't. That's the
Right.
point.
That's he didn't go the way. There was a system where he could just strangulation. They spoke against me, inciting. All right, there we go. That's it.
Well, no, but we have to prove it. It's not just some simple thing.
Right.
No, but it has to go through a court.
Right.
It's not, the king doesn't have the power just to kill and like that. He doesn't really have that power. He has to go through a court to do that.
No.
That's why otherwise David would have been justified in having Uriah killed. Right? Because Uriah did rebellion against the king. If really he wanted to do that, he could have just put him to death.
Right.
Now he has, so I'm not saying that he doesn't have the ability, but it's supposed to go through a court.
Right.
Okay? But that wouldn't be the same thing as this. It is Lashon Hara, so, God's taking care of you.
Right. My thing is, the segue is,
Oh.
David or Shlomo or whatever didn't go, oh, I have this available now. Strangulation, you're done. This is
Right?
the court.
It wouldn't be smart.
Yeah. Quick question.
Yeah.
I'm backtracking here about Maaser. Since the temple is gone and this whole structure isn't there, aside from tzedakah and like hafrashat chala, how does Maaser play out in our present time?
In Israel? Oh, it would apply in Israel, by the way. It would only apply in Israel, first of all. So it would be on the farming land. So we still have the law in Israel. You still have the laws of Peah and so on and so forth. They still apply. So the poor people still can come. Now you can't give it. You're right. You can't give it to the Kohen or anything else. But so that it may be dealt with like we deal with challah, namely burning it. So I'm not sure exactly how that would be. Certainly you have to separate it. People separate Truma and Meiser from their grains. And what they do is they have to allow it to rot and so on and so forth. But there are methods that when we get, as a matter of fact, when we get fruits from Israel, we have to deal with that. That's why most people don't want to get fruits from Israel because they don't know how to. It's a simple thing to do, but we're not trained in that. But that is, if you go to Israel, you would have to do it right away. Again, you can't give it to anybody, so it rots. But that's just what it is. But we want to keep ourselves trained to do that.
Now, you go into a store in Israel, some
You went to the store where?
In Israel, you go to the grocery store. You have to, maaser, you as a consumer that bought the produce that the farmer already did maaser. As a consumer, you have to do that too.
He didn't do maaser.
Let's suppose he did.
So if you know he did, you have to do it. But we're assuming it's demai, so that's another tractate.
Right, okay.
Demai is the other tractate where we're assuming he didn't do it. But if it says maaser challah, all these things taken, and it's a good hashgacha, has no you, if you will, so then you can rely upon that.
Okay.
And you don't have to do anything.
Wouldn't that form, for one who produces it, take a different form than one who consumes it? In other words, you told me, we discussed how lands are, how fields are allowed to not be planted every so often.
Okay.
Is there an equivalent form from the producer as opposed to the consumer of how you do that tithe or that 10%, whatever? In other words, does the farmer take 10% of his seeds and throw them out before they even hit the ground?
No. The tithing is only taken on produce, not on seed. Has to be on produce. It has to grow.
Right, to the actual thing.
Right. So if he has,
So in the name of harvesting it, he wouldn't take 10% and throw it out? Or is that only for the consumer?
Okay, so the farmer only would have to do it when it's ready, when it's finished. He only has to take mice. We only take mice on the finished product.
Yeah,
So what happens is, in other words, I have to take my wheat and I have to mount and I have to basically put it in one place, square it off, ready for use. So at that point, I'm obligated, assuming it sees the entrance of my house. In other words, it comes through my front door. At that point, I'm obligated. So I guess your answer would be that once it comes consumer use ready, in other words, it came into the house, at that point, that's when it's obligated to have maaser. But if I'm bringing it to the market, so it's may not necessarily be ready to be used. So I'm not sure. Again, it all depends on where it is in the process. So if I want to make it consumer ready in every package, I could remove everything and I just tell the consumer I've done it once. It's be done once, not 50 times. Otherwise, you're not doing anything. And the only reason you're throwing it away is because we don't have the Kohen and the Levi to take it in the temple and so on. So we're not in these. We're in a state of tumah and spiritual impurity. There's a lot of things that are going on right now that run into that. But assuming that we would have a red heifer, that we could now become purified and no longer tameh, and we had the Beis HaMikdash, the temple in Yerushalayim built properly, then that maaser truma would not be thrown away. It would be given to the Kohen and the Levi respectively. So then that's their money. You're taking their money and throwing away. But the problem is that I as a Kohen, can't take your maaser because I can't prove I'm a Kohen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm also tameh. I'm also spiritually impure because, first of all, outside of Israel, the rabbis made a decree that everybody's tameh because we don't know where the bodies are buried. That's also a problem. If I walk over a grave, I become tameh. So we don't even know where literally, it sounds like the mafia, but we don't know where they're buried. So if I don't know where they're buried, that's the problem. Sometimes you plow. Where this came also a problem in Israel itself, because when the Arabs took Mount Olives before 67, right? 467, they leveled everything, and so now you have Mount Olive where the burials were. So now the graves are all messed up. You don't know where anything is, so you can't go there. There's other places that on the highway. They built a highway past through through a graveyard. So if you're a Kohen, you have to. They said you're supposed to get off the bus, and the bus, but the bus won't wait for you. So you have to figure out what you're going to do. You're in the middle of a desert, but there's problems with that. So as a result of that, outside of Israel, certainly we don't know where everybody's buried, and So you say, Rabbi said, automatically we're impure, spiritually impure. So again, we would have to need. If let's say I could prove that I'm a Kohen, and therefore I could guarantee that you owe me money. Fine, because you have my whatever you have. Now but I can't eat it. So what am I collecting it for? You're going to have to burn it anyway. So rather you let you burn it and it goes and dies. Really, that's how it works today.
Yeah. What about Pidyon Ben?
What about it?
I mean, this whole ceremony of.
I understand what it is, but I'm saying you're trusting that I'm a Kohen.
I guess.
You need to do it. So you need to do it. So you have to trust that I'm a Kohen. If I'm saying I'm a Kohen, you have to trust that I'm a Kohen. So now you give me the $5 silver. I redeem the child, and
yeah, I guess my point is that I can't trust that you're a Kohen with Maaser, but I have to trust that you're a Kohen with Pidyon Ben. There seems to be a conflict there.
Yeah. Okay. But again, the biggest thing is we're not spiritually pure. Right. So even if I could prove a Kohen, it doesn't really matter. I couldn't use it. It's ultimately going to be burned one way or another. Pidyon Ben, so you can rely upon the chazaka that I have, because you have to redeem your son. So you have to redeem the son. So there was one person who every time he met a Kohen, he would redeem his son. Because he wasn't sure. Okay, fine. Okay. But if you're being called Kohen, everybody knows you're a Kohen. So why should I really rock the boat? By the way, let's say the person isn't a Kohen, and now the person was never redeemed. So now after 120, to use that language, you go up to Rabban Shalom and he says, "You never redeemed your son." You can say to Rabban Shalom, with all due respect, which means I have no respect for the question, of course. But with all due respect, he said he was a Kohen. The town said he was a Kohen. I should argue on that. By your laws, I can't argue. And Hashem, of course, would say, "Good, very good, next." We'll start again. Yeah. There's nothing to say to that. As compared to if I have to give Truma Meiser, so remember, I'm coming to you and I'm saying, "Give it to me." Well, if I give it to you, the other part of that is if I give it to you and you misuse it, since it's holy, then I could be responsible for that too. Unlike my child, which really was, I just have to, because the Torah says to do that, fine. So and there's really no inherent holiness anymore. It's only residual, right? Your firstborns today are not holy. There's a residual holiness. Okay, fine. So now for that, I can get my way out. The Truma Meiser is really holy. Okay. So I mean, those would be some of the questions, some of the answers that you would give. Okay. Let's go on. What time do I have? Oh, I'm over time. Okay, we won't go on. Okay, we'll stop here.